Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. The knife didn't slip. The glass didn't shatter. Nobody screamed. But make no mistake, something broke that night. It was supposed to be an ordinary Friday dinner at her parents' place. Linen napkins. A roast that smelled like tradition. Laughter that felt 2 notches too rehearsed. I was there, as always, folding into the background like a guest in my own marriage. Her dad was talking about golf swings. Her mom was refilling everyone's wine glass before it hit empty. I was listening, nodding like I cared about Jim's new patio tiles, when Coraline opened her mouth and casually turned the whole evening into a nightmare. She pointed her wine glass across the table and said, "God, my boss is so decisive. You know? Charismatic. He owns every room he walks into. That's a man. Not like what I have at home. Just like that. No warning. No hesitation. Just." Served it right there with the green beans. The table didn't go silent, it froze. Jim dropped his fork. Her cousin started fake laughing, like maybe it was a joke. Her dad cleared his throat like he wanted to pretend he didn't hear it. But I heard every syllable, and each one sliced cleaner than the carving knife. My hands trembled, but I didn't say a word at first. I stared at her, not in shock. No, I'd seen this version of her brewing for months. It was in the smirks, the schedule changes, the phone turned face down every night. It had been there. I just didn't want to believe it. And maybe I could have taken the hit quietly, like I always did. But this time, something in me finally stood up, even if it came out in the form of a whisper. I looked her right in the eye, and without even raising my voice, said, "I'd also like to see your sister in my house instead of you." The silence after that was biblical. Her mother's jaw slackened mid-sip. Her sister, yes, that sister, dropped her spoon. Coraline blinked like I just slapped her. But no one moved. No one breathed. For once, I had said the line no one expected from me. The quiet, careful, unremarkable husband who did the dishes and got mocked for being too safe. I stood up, calm, collected, and as I walked out the front door, I realized something. This wasn't about revenge. This was the first honest moment in years. And it was far from over. When I walked out of that dinner, I didn't drive anywhere. I sat in the car, staring through the windshield, fingers locked on the steering wheel like I was waiting for some divine instruction on what to do next. My phone buzzed nonstop, calls from her, a message from her sister asking if I was okay, a group text from her mom that just said, "Let's talk calmly." I didn't answer any of it. For the first time in years, I needed silence. Not peace. Silence. Because peace never existed in our home. Just avoidance and tension covered up by throw pillows and matching wine glasses. I didn't go to a friend's place. I didn't book a hotel. I went back to the house. Our house. Still hers, technically. But after what happened at dinner, it didn't feel like she belonged in it anymore. I stood in the doorway for a moment before walking in, almost expecting her to be there, waiting. She wasn't. I had hours to myself. Just me, the ticking kitchen clock, and the soft buzz of guilt trying to convince me I'd gone too far. But had I? I was tired of swallowing my dignity, tired of the careful smiles and fake apologies. So I did something that, under any other circumstance, would have made me feel like the villain. I opened her laptop. She wasn't home. She wouldn't be for hours. I knew her pattern well enough. First, a call to her sister, then to her best friend. Then she'd circle back and act like nothing ever happened. I had that window, so I took it. I opened the laptop. She had the nerve to leave it unlocked. No password change. No hidden files. She must have either trusted me too much or stopped thinking about me at all. Either way, I clicked through her folders, not sure what I was even hoping to find. Maybe I was hoping I'd find nothing. Maybe I needed her to prove me wrong. Just once. To give me a reason to believe I was the one overreacting. Instead, I found the folder titled Work Events. Inside were subfolders with dates. Innocent enough. But one caught my attention. Newport weekend, June. We hadn't gone to Newport. She told me it was a seminar. A 2-day leadership retreat for department heads. I remember because I made her a little breakfast pack before she left. Stupid, I know. Granola, coffee, handwritten note. Don't forget sunscreen. Proud of you. What an idiot. I clicked into the folder. First, just photos. Conference rooms. Name tags. Then a photo of her. In a red dress I'd never seen before. Smiling beside a man I'd never met. His hand was on her back. Too low. Too familiar. And then a video. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the touchpad. My brain said don't. But my gut whispered, you already know. So I opened it. And there she was. In a hotel room. Same red dress. Sitting on the bed. Talking to the man like they'd known each other for years. Her voice was soft, different. Not the sharp tone she used with me. She laughed at his dumb jokes. Said things like, you're so bad. And one would never understand. She looked alive. I felt like I was watching someone else's life. Like I'd been erased, replaced, edited out of the narrative entirely. She'd been having an emotional affair. Maybe more. I don't even know anymore. What I do know is that the version of her sitting on that bed didn't seem to remember I existed. I didn't close the laptop. I didn't delete anything. I just sat there, watching, listening, letting the truth dig into me slowly, like splinters. It was no longer about what she said at dinner. It was about everything she never said to my face. And I wasn't going to let her explain it away with another "you're overreacting." This time, I was going to let her see what it feels like to be forgotten. She came home humming. Yes, humming. Like she'd just returned from a yoga retreat instead of a dinner where she humiliated her husband in front of her family. I heard the garage door groan open, the slow whir of her car shutting off, then the familiar rhythm of heels clicking across the tile floor. She didn't call out my name, didn't ask if I was home. She just waltzed into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of rose, and acted like the whole thing hadn't happened. Like her words hadn't shattered something fragile and private and unrecoverable. I was already seated in the living room, the TV screen black, her laptop open on the coffee table. She glanced at me once, just once, and muttered, "So you're back," then sipped her wine like it was a shield. I didn't respond. Not immediately. I turned the laptop toward her and pressed play. The video I'd found earlier flickered to life. The one from the Newport folder. The one where she was sitting on a hotel bed in that tight red dress. Laughing like she was 16 again. Leaning into a man whose name I didn't even know. Her voice in the video was soft, sweet, intimate. She said things like, "He wouldn't get it," and "One is too cautious. You're fire." She gasped. Not the dramatic kind, it was sharp, involuntary. Her glass hit the table hard, spilling rose onto her blouse. For the first time in forever, she was the one without words. "Want to talk now?" I asked. My voice was dry. I barely recognized it. "What the hell, Wendell? Why are you going through my stuff?" She finally spat. That was her defense. Not denial. Not remorse. Just deflection. And it hit me harder than the video. She wasn't even sorry. She was just caught. "Your boss?" I asked. "The one you publicly drooled over during dinner? That's him, isn't it?" She blinked, jaw tight. "It wasn't like that." "No? You compared me to him. You mocked me. In front of everyone. And now here's proof that you were already building your backup plan while I was still making you lunchboxes like a fool." "I didn't cheat," she said. But even she didn't believe it. Her eyes dropped. "You didn't physically cheat yet? Or you just didn't record that part?" I stood up, every nerve in my body buzzing. "You know what hurts the most? It's not that you wanted someone else. It's that you forgot I was a person while you did it. I was your husband, Coraline. I was still in the room when you started replacing me." She opened her mouth again, but I was done. I left the room. I couldn't hear one more excuse. I locked myself in the guest room that night. Couldn't sleep. My thoughts kept circling back to one thing. How long had she been drifting? And why did I keep pretending I didn't feel it? Maybe because I was afraid. Afraid to admit that the person I loved had quietly stopped loving me back. And I let her. But something else happened that night. Something unexpected. Just before I drifted off, my phone buzzed. A message. From her sister. Just one line. I heard what you said at dinner. I need to tell you something. And just like that, everything shifted again. Because Coraline's betrayal was only the beginning. I stared at the message for what felt like hours. I heard what you said at dinner. I need to tell you something. From Justine, her younger sister. The same one I jokingly mentioned replacing Coraline with, not because I meant it, but because I was too broken to stay silent. I didn't reply right away. Couldn't. My heart was still bruised from what I just watched on that screen, and my hands trembled like they no longer belonged to me. Around 2:15 a.m., I finally responded, "Go ahead." Seconds later, the typing bubbles appeared. "It's not just him. Your wife's been lying about a lot more than Newport." That sentence knocked the wind out of me. I sat up in bed, pulse thudding in my ears. What did that mean? I sent another message. Quick. Desperate. "Justine, what are you talking about?" Her reply came in chunks. She said Coraline had been confiding in her for months. That the boss thing was just the tip of it. That there had been more connections, more flirtations, even a few weekends where she lied about going to see her mom when, in reality, she booked Airbnbs with someone named Grant. Not her boss. Not even from her company. Some guy she met online through a book club she never told me she joined. "She didn't tell me everything," Justine wrote, "but I know she cheated. More than once. And she laughed about it. Like it was a game." That word. Game. I felt sick. Everything I had done. Every sacrifice. Every boring spreadsheet job I kept because she liked the stability. Every compliment I gave her on days when she clearly didn't deserve them. It was all part of a background she never planned to keep in the frame. I asked Justine why she was telling me this now. Her reply was simple. "Because you finally spoke up, and I'm tired of protecting her from consequences." I don't know what shocked me more. That Coraline's sister had known all along, or that she had decided this was the moment to turn the tables. But something in that message flipped a switch in me. I wasn't going to keep being the quiet, boring husband who tiptoed around my wife's ego. I got up, walked into the hallway, and found Coraline still awake, scrolling on her phone with that same cold detachment. She looked up like I was interrupting her evening news. "I want you out," I said. She blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Pack your things. Take your wine. Take your pretty lies. And go." She scoffed, like I was joking. Like I'd suddenly grown a spine and she couldn't quite process it. "Oh please, Wendell. You think you can just throw me out because your feelings got hurt?" I didn't even raise my voice. "I've been sitting in this house like furniture, and you've been walking past me like I'm wallpaper. But that ends now. You humiliated me, you betrayed me, and you treated me like I was disposable. So go. Go play house with your charismatic boss or your book club boyfriend or whoever else you've been rehearsing your fake laughs for." She tried to fight back. Not physically, but with that look she always used to wear when she wanted me to feel like I was overreacting. But it didn't land this time. I walked back into the guest room, locked the door, and left her standing there, finally hearing the silence she'd been ignoring for years. The next morning, she was gone. But that didn't mean it was over. Because 3 days later, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address. No note. Inside, photographs. Ones I never expected. Of people I never imagined being involved. And that's when I realized Coraline wasn't the only one hiding something. I don't know what I expected when I opened that envelope. Maybe divorce papers. Maybe a petty handwritten note from Coraline. Something venomous and smug. That would have been her style. But not this. Not photos. Not the kind that make your stomach twist and your brain beg to look away while your eyes stay frozen. There were 6 of them. Not digital. Printed. Glossy. Intentional. The first one showed Coraline sitting at a dimly lit bar. Not unusual, except she wasn't alone. She was holding someone's hand across the table. A man. Maybe in his mid-30s. Not her boss. Not Grant. Not anyone I recognized. But he was leaning close, and she was smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at me in years. That small, slightly flirty, almost teenage smile. The one I thought had died somewhere between mortgage payments and her rolling her eyes every time I told her I loved her. The second photo hit harder. They were in a hotel parking lot. He was kissing her neck. Her head was thrown back, laughing. I wasn't surprised anymore, just numb. But the third photo nearly dropped me to my knees. It wasn't her with a man. It was her and my best friend, Aaron. We'd been friends since college. He helped me move into my first apartment, was the best man at our wedding, held my mother's hand at her funeral when I couldn't. That kind of friend. The kind you don't question. The kind you trust with your keys, your dog, your life. He was in the photo, standing too close to Coraline in what looked like my backyard. Our backyard. The timing was impossible to pin down, but the intimacy was clear. Her hand was on his chest. He was smiling down at her like they were sharing a private joke. Something snapped in me at that moment. Something quieter than rage but heavier than heartbreak. Who took these photos? Why were they sent to me? There was no note, no name, no explanation. Just a paper trail of betrayal delivered in silence. At first, I thought it might have been Justine. Maybe she wanted to blow everything up and make sure I never looked back. But then I realized she was in one of the photos too. Not doing anything wrong. Just present. In the background. Looking directly at the camera. And that's when it hit me. Someone was watching all of us. This wasn't about catching Coraline in a moment of weakness. This was someone documenting something bigger. Something messier. Like they were waiting for the perfect moment to drop the hammer. I picked up my phone and called Aaron. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. I sent a text. We need to talk. Now. No response. I sat there for an hour staring at those images, my mind trying to stitch together a puzzle where all the pieces had been hiding in plain sight. How long had they been close? How many times had I invited him over while they were secretly laughing at me behind my back? How many beers did we share in my own kitchen while he waited for me to go upstairs so he could steal pieces of my life? I felt stupid. Worse, I felt used. I tried to call Justine next, and she picked up on the first ring. Her voice was shaky. I didn't send them, she said before I even asked. But I know who did. I gripped the phone tighter. Who? She hesitated. You're not going to like this. Just tell me. She exhaled slowly. It's Mom. Coraline's mom. Your mother-in-law. That was the last thing I expected. She was always polite, quiet, always setting the table just so, cutting vegetables like it was a ritual. I never imagined she had the capacity to spy or worse, orchestrate. But Justine's voice was steady now, more certain. She's known for years. About Coraline. About Aaron. About all of it. She wanted you to find out this way. She wanted you to be the one to burn it all down. I couldn't breathe for a second. My mind kept replaying the dinner. Her mother sipping her wine slowly as Coraline humiliated me. Her eyes cold and unreadable. She wasn't shocked. She was waiting. And now so was I. Because the next move wasn't going to be emotional. It was going to be precise. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. The photos were burned into my brain. And the idea that my mother-in-law had been sitting on this information, curating it, was almost more disturbing than the betrayal itself. What kind of person collects evidence like that and just waits? Waits for what? For me to finally grow a spine? For the family drama to hit a climax like some soap opera she was directing from the sidelines? By morning, I had made a decision. I needed to see her. Alone. Not Coraline, not Justine, just her. She lived 15 minutes away in a pristine white house with hydrangeas lined like soldiers along the walkway. I'd been there hundreds of times, always smiling, always pretending I didn't notice how she'd look at me, like I was a consolation prize her daughter settled for. This time, I didn't knock. I rang the bell once, then opened the door with the spare key I still had from that time Coraline locked herself out. The sound of the door swinging open made her call out from the kitchen like it was any other Sunday. Oh, I wasn't expecting. I know you sent the photos, I said, stepping inside. Silence. I walked down the hallway, each step echoing like a countdown. She was standing by the island, drying her hands with a linen towel, calm, almost amused. So you've finally seen what's been there all along, she said. I didn't sit down. Why? Why now? Why collect all of this and just let it rot in a drawer? She raised an eyebrow, as if the answer was obvious. Because Coraline was never going to stop. And you were never going to leave. The words hit like a slap. I opened my mouth, but she held up a hand. She's my daughter, she said. But that doesn't mean I approve of what she's become. I tried to warn you, subtly. You never heard it. You could have told me. And you would have believed me? Or would you have defended her like you always did? She turned her back to me and walked toward a small cabinet near the fridge. Bent down, unlocked it with a key around her neck, and pulled out a shallow drawer. Since you're here, you might as well see the rest. Inside the drawer was more than I was prepared for. Printed emails, screenshots, even receipts. Hotel bookings, rideshare logs. A receipt from a spa retreat Coraline swore she won in a work raffle. There were names I didn't recognize, timestamps that overlapped with nights she told me she was working late, and one particularly awful receipt for a necklace, engraved with "to see. Always yours, Aaron." My jaw clenched. You knew all this, and you let me marry her anyway? She wasn't like this back then, she said softly. Or maybe she was, and I didn't want to see it either. But I started documenting when I realized she wasn't just cheating on you. She was erasing you. I stepped back from the drawer, nauseous. This isn't normal. You could have just called me, talked to me like a person. She finally looked me in the eyes. I didn't need you to talk, Wendell. I needed you to wake up. Her voice wasn't cruel. It was cold, calculated. But beneath that, there was something else, maybe guilt, or disappointment. I couldn't tell anymore. I didn't want to. I didn't know who I was angrier at. Coraline for cheating, Aaron for betraying me, or her mother for turning it all into some twisted theater she could direct from her granite countertop. I don't know what to do with this, I muttered, staring at the pile of evidence like it might explode. Burn it. Frame it. Show it to the world, she said. I don't care. But if you stay with her after this, that's on you. I didn't say goodbye. I just left. The folder clenched under my arm like a weapon, my hands shaking not from fear, but from knowing something irreversible had begun. Because I couldn't unsee what I saw, couldn't unhear what I'd heard. And I damn sure couldn't go back to being the wallpaper husband who let other people control his story. So I made a choice. It was time to disappear, but not without leaving a trail of my own. The idea of disappearing didn't come from anger. It came from exhaustion. I wasn't looking to punish Coraline or even expose her. I wanted silence, the kind that doesn't echo with the sound of someone else's lies. After I left her mother's house, I drove aimlessly for hours, no destination, no plan. By the time the sun started bleeding into the sky, I found myself parked by the coast. I sat there in my car, watching waves crush the sand, and realized I had spent years trying to keep a life alive that had already flatlined. I wasn't escaping her. I was escaping the version of myself that stayed. That morning, I withdrew half of our joint savings. Not out of spite, but because I'd earned it. Every dollar, every late-night overtime shift, every promotion I passed up because she said she liked stability. I left the other half untouched. Call it my parting gift. I shut off my phone and bought a prepaid one with cash. The silence after I tossed my old phone into a dumpster was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. I packed only what fit in a small suitcase. One change of clothes, my laptop, and the folder of evidence her mother had handed me. I rented a small cabin 2 towns over, paid for a month up front, and used a fake name. It wasn't criminal. It was survival. For the first time in months, I slept. No voices, no questions, no pretending. Just the sound of wind scraping against the windows. But peace didn't last. On the 3rd day, the prepaid phone buzzed. No caller ID, no number. Just a text that said, "You shouldn't have gone there." My stomach twisted. I had told no one where I was. No one except the motel clerk who barely looked up from his crossword puzzle. Then another text came through. "You think she's the only one who lied?" I froze. My pulse hammered through my ribs. I texted back, "Who is this?" No response. Then, after a few minutes, a photo came in. A blurry shot of me standing at the gas station from that morning buying coffee. Someone was following me. I looked out the window, scanning the tree line behind the cabin, half expecting to see headlights or a figure in the shadows. Nothing, just branches swaying. I locked the door, turned off every light, and sat in the dark, staring at that message. "You think she's the only one who lied?" The words kept looping in my head like a taunt. What if her mother wasn't trying to protect me? What if this whole thing, the photos, the drawer, the evidence, was just another manipulation? Maybe she wasn't collecting proof for my sake. Maybe she was covering her own tracks. The next morning, I decided to go back. I couldn't stay in hiding if I didn't even know what I was running from. I drove straight to the house, ignoring the dread crawling up my spine. When I pulled into the driveway, Coraline's car was gone. But the front door was open, swaying slightly in the wind. I stepped inside. The place was trashed. Papers everywhere, drawers pulled out. The smell of perfume mixed with something metallic. On the floor near the couch was the linen towel her mother always used to dry her hands. And smeared across it blood. The blood on the towel wasn't fresh. It was smeared, dried at the edges, like it had been wiped hastily rather than spilled. Still, it stopped me cold. My heart pounded as I stepped deeper into the house, careful not to touch anything. Drawers had been yanked open, photo frames thrown to the floor. Coraline's perfume lingered faintly in the air, which only made everything feel more off. This wasn't a robbery. It was chaos with purpose. In the living room, the TV was still on, muted, showing some commercial about vacation cruises. But it was what lay beneath it that really broke me. A small stack of papers. Divorce documents. Signed. Dated. My name and hers. Black ink bold across white paper. No note. No explanation. Just her signature and a key taped to the corner of the page. Then my phone buzzed again. One final text from Justine. "It's over. She left. I think, for good this time." I should have felt empty, or angry, or vindicated. Instead, I felt still, like the storm had finally passed, and all that remained was quiet. I gathered the papers and stepped outside, locking the door behind me. I didn't need to be here anymore. This place wasn't my home. It hadn't been for a long time. That night, I returned to the small cabin on the edge of nowhere. I lit a fire, not out of drama, but because it was cold. I sat down with the photos, the documents, the receipts, and for the first time I let myself cry. Not for her, but for the years I lost playing the part of someone who didn't deserve better. But I had survived. That mattered. In the morning, I mailed the signed divorce papers back to her attorney and transferred the rest of the joint account to her. Every cent. Let her use it to rebuild whatever life she thought she deserved. I wasn't going to chase justice anymore. That chapter was closed. A week later, I started over. Quietly. I didn't announce it to anyone. No Facebook posts. No dramatic exits. I got a modest job in a quiet town, rented a place with no shared memories, and planted my own garden. I didn't need revenge. I just needed peace. And for the first time in years, I had it. Thank you for following this story to the end. If it reminded you of a powerful, strange, or unbelievable moment in your own life, share it in the comments. Let's talk about it. Sometimes the most unbelievable stories are the ones sitting quietly inside us. And don't forget, you're watching Reddit Confessions, where truth doesn't whisper, it confesses.